Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with Koen van der Poel, founder and CEO of CultureSuite, and Ivo van der Ent, CTO of CultureSuite. Koen founded Peppered in 2000 when it started as a website development agency, while Ivo has been with Peppered since 2003. And in 2023, Peppered merged with After Digital, a Glasgow-based development agency, to form CultureSuite, which is where we are today. So how are you both doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, doing excellent. We just had the summer holidays, so freshed up, ready to go.
All good. I mean, Peppered has been a SaaS platform for hosting and building websites for over 10 years now. But all the way back in 2000, Peppered started as an agency, a traditional agency building bespoke websites. Can you tell us a little bit about that time and how Peppered transitioned to focus on the arts and culture sector?
I guess it wasn't even an agency. I don't think we even had such a thing as web agencies back in the year 2000. I guess it was organically shaped. First contact was Theater de Veste, theater in Delft, that we came into contact with, or actually I came into contact because it was just me, myself and I back then. And one thing led to another, more theaters, more people. Ivo is one of the first. And that all led to becoming a web agency specialized for arts and culture, and that led actually to what we are today.
And so you were developing websites for multiple sectors at the time, not just arts and culture.
Yeah, well, in the really early days, we also did websites for local government. I also did a job for one of the ministries in The Hague. Ivo did a lot of fun designs with also posters and brochures for theater, but also for government.
Yeah, libraries and stuff. A lot of publishing, a lot of print work, posters, booklets, brochures, and stuff like that. So we did all bits and pieces for companies around Delft, basically.
Yeah. And what triggered the move to focus entirely on arts and culture?
Well, that went rather quickly because there was also from our side an interest in the sector, because the sector is really full with people that really chose to be in that sector, have heart for the sector, have heart for the venue they work in. So that adds a special kind of feeling to whoever you work with. Also, the venues themselves are, relatively speaking, small organizations, but very widespread, well known. And also they needed a lot of IT. So it was really great for us to be able to bridge that gap of what the sector needed and what we can offer. And I guess that also fell into good ground on the other side, because from, like I said before, one thing led to another. We had more and more venues joining, and that's kind of been, if you take away what we do exactly, it's about bridging the gap between what's needed for IT, internet, and technology towards the cultural sector.
Yeah, I think when you look back at 2000, 2003, like online ticketing was not a thing. Ticketing systems didn't really support an online web shop. So we actually, one of the first things we did was bringing it online with a ticketing connection and trying to have that online purchase path and an online experience within a theater website. And I think that got the ball rolling, because those were new technologies that everyone was kind of already looking for, but it didn't exist yet. So I think I'm not sure if we were the first, but we were one of the parties that actually managed to have an online purchase path for culture. And that means complex ticketing with different tiers, and later also with seat plans and stuff. So that is kind of a niche that we fell into very early on, and that led to a lot of new theaters being interested in what we do.
And also remember that in that time, the internet was also not that important for theaters themselves, because it was really something on top. You would sell tickets on the box office. You would sell tickets through brochure and paper forms, and selling tickets online was a very new thing. Phone maybe came first. So you were really at the perfect timing, maybe in hindsight, of when it all developed, and we were able to help develop it.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly a common theme at conferences I attended this year, such as AMA, when people talk about a need for technical knowledge and technical expertise in the sector. We also talked a little bit about ticketing integrations in there, which is a key part of websites. So Peppered was developing websites for arts and culture venues for a few years, and then there was a shift away from the traditional agency model to start building a SaaS platform to build websites with. Now, when we think about the context of ticketing integrations and the technical knowledge, what was the motivation for moving away from a traditional agency model where you build stuff bespoke integrations into a more comes right out of the box?
I think it was a combination of things. In no particular order, it felt more and more wasteful to reinvent the wheel all the time and build a similar thing over and over again. The need for tech and more complicated tech also rose, so it became also more difficult to get enough budget from an individual venue to do everything from the ground up. I don't think that even exists anymore today. So even when people think they have a bespoke website, that's never fully bespoke. So it also has to start somewhere. But back in the day, there was something you would like build from the ground up every single time. And feeling wasteful was not only on our side, it was also on the side of venues that felt that a lot of their budget was spent on basics. So we really needed to figure out, how can we make it for ourselves more interesting? How can we add more value? And also, how can we add the knowledge we can bring instead of just building the basics of a brief, but how can we add something on top of that? And switching to the SaaS model really just unleashed a much bigger budget to do things if we would have to do everything individually. So basically, more fun for us to do, more added value. If you look at the value we bring to a much lower price, and also the power of collectiveness and ideas from one venue springing to the other. So it was really something that was just such a wonderful new way of doing things, and it really felt like a liberation, I would almost say.
Yeah, it just clicked, it just made sense. I think when going back to maybe 2005, 6, 7, 8, we're talking that period that we are here. Like the web had evolved a lot, so there were more complicated features in the online landscape. And having to build that from scratch, it became more complicated and complicated, also less necessary, because eventually you have all those pieces of the puzzle for one venue, and you can reuse it for another venue if you prepare it properly, or you store it in such a place that you can copy it. And then in that landscape getting more and more complex, we heard sounds from maybe our smaller clients. Can we just have the same website as the other one has? Can we just make some kind of copy? Can we share costs? And in the beginning, the answer was no, because we really still have to have your own website with your own CMS, with your own hosting. But gradually that evolved into, well, actually, we could do that. We could try to make identical copies and figure out a way to keep them all up to date in the same way, so that we're actually talking about one thing, and start trying to do that. So the initiative came actually also from the sector itself, by trying to save costs of the more complicated stuff everyone seemed to need, and also from ourselves with a product mindset that was already a bit embedded in the organization, I think, to try to find practical and effective ways to be able to do that, and to move further away from the complexity of bespoke.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we're having a chat today is that we recently celebrated the 200th release of Peppered CMS.
Wow.
Do you guys remember release number 1 of Peppered CMS? How did that day feel? What were some of the biggest challenges in reaching that?
I'm afraid it's not a really sexy story. It's not like we prepared for an official release 1 and there were the new features. when we started trying to copy websites and making actually one platform for all, we already had a CMS with some modules that were reusable for all our new clients. And we updated those irregularly whenever we needed to update for a client here or for a new client there. But we soon found out that having a proper CMS that has one version makes sense, and we can use that again and again and save a lot of time in the setup there. And then we actually moved over to a shared front end, which we called Blocks at the time. And by having that and having new features put on top of that, we kind of noticed we were basically already doing releases, but very irregularly. You update 2 sites, maybe on a Monday here and maybe a month later there for a feature or for a bug fix. But when it grows bigger and you have 5 websites and you have 10, you need to start announcing changes, but you also need to get them all on the same version, or you don't know which version a client is on. It gets more complicated to fix things or to release things. So quite organically, we settled on maybe it was a 2-week release schedule around that time. Every 2 weeks a release, in order to keep all the people on that platform on the same version. So it was a gradual process from ad hoc releases to looking back, a first proper release as the first one of a scheduled release cycle every 2 and later every 3 weeks. So there were obviously already releases before that because we were building features for the cultural sector, but they didn't feel like a release, or they weren't really releases. They were just updates to one site or another, or sometimes multiple. But there was a gradual switch into, okay, from now on, we're only going to release on certain days. That keeps everyone in the right focus, and that keeps all our customers on the same level. But it was more looking back that we did that than planning it in advance and having a big first release party or something. It just organically happened.
Yeah, you could argue that we really evolved. We've used that term in the past as well. We've evolved from starting with individual websites and then to what we are today. And somewhere in that evolution process, there's also a gradual thing. It's not like, poof, here's Yums, or at least some people maybe believe that version. But in our case, it was more close to the evolutionary theory. And I generally believe that there's still some agencies that follow the more traditional model, but they're maybe probably somewhere halfway of that evolution. And you see them also moving slowly now towards those steps we've been in the past. So we truly believe that this is the way everybody will evolve to. And we also know already that we'll probably evolve to something else in the future, but we just still don't know what, because that has to be adapting to whatever the future needs.
Yeah, that often feels like the nature of technology as well. We can never look too far ahead because you don't know what's just around the corner.
Yeah, and don't forget that on the grand scheme of things, the internet is really young. And talking about again the year 2000 when it started, the internet, and compared it to what the internet today is. Remember, in 2000 there was no smartphone yet. We didn't invent the iPhone. It wasn't normal to have an internet connection everywhere if you're on the train or wherever. So it all went super fast. And back then, application technology was relatively simple. And today already, it's so much more complex. It's not even feasible anymore to build something from scratch for one application. It doesn't exist even today. It's just now that still agencies are trying to figure out how to adapt to that new change, and this is just the next step of that evolution. And that release number 1 just marks the spot when we started counting releases. That's the story there.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I may know the answer to the next question, because it sounds like you don't miss those old days of building everything bespoke. But does it feel more rewarding and productive to be able to work on a product over many years, to constantly develop it, improve on features such as the what's on pages and improve on purchase path features?
Yeah, you know the answer, Diet, and no doubt there's from so many angles. So if you look also from budgets. We all have to deal with budgets. And in the old days, a budget was always two opposite sides, because as a venue, you want to spend as less budget as possible to get what you need. And we needed as much budget as possible to build what we were requested to build. And it starts out as a fight, basically. And now we're so much more on the same side, because there's a budget, and we use that budget for the R&D team and for the customer success managers, etc. And it becomes more, and it doesn't only feel that way, but it truly is, that we're all on the same side trying to move forward together instead of fighting for something. And same goes for in the past when there was something important. Now, for example, in the EU, the digital accessibility is again a big thing. In the past, that meant that every single venue had to do something for every single website and research and audit. Now we just make that one joint project, and we can do the project at a higher level, and we can add much better ways and more sustainable ways to build something. So, I mean, even to talk about such one of the many examples, it's so much more exciting, so much more fun, and adds so much more value than having to then go back to every single venue and ask for budget and see how we can approach it. And there's probably not enough budget to do it properly, and then you have to build something half-baked, and etc.
Yeah, and I think it's a far more positive mindset if you know you're working on features that need to last a long time, and that will linger a long time, and that a lot of venues will use for a long time. And because of that, you are able to keep on refining them and get feedback from them and make a better second phase. And so you're able to build upon your initial ideas and improve them. Well, when you're making a bespoke website, ideally you can launch half of what you agreed upon or promised, because it's complex. And then you're in a phase of maintaining. And for every bespoke site you need to maintain, you need to put people in that maintain it. And it feels like a lost time only for one client to do that, and it just feels so wasted. And then in another 3-4 years that entire code base is going to be tossed away for something new. So you never get the chance to actually keep on building on something bigger. So the mindset of having that platform and introducing new features, and you really need to think of what you introduce and how it should work, because it's going to be there for a long time. If you do your work right, it's going to be there for a long time. It's going to be used for a long time, and you get a lot of feedback, and you can keep on building. So it's like, I have made the metaphor before. It's like raising your own child. You see it grow, you see it mature, you see it develop certain skills and certain focal points, and you get really proud of your work because it sticks with you all the time. And it grows. And I think that's the most rewarding part of this, is everything we did 10 years ago in some way or form is still with us. Nothing gets discarded. Some things get remade or revamped, but the initial ideas don't get discarded. It's all here.
Yeah, I love that metaphor, actually. And it brings us on nicely to a comparison, which perhaps we don't talk too much about, the comparison between agencies and the SaaS platform, in that you touched on it a bit there, that agencies can often feel quite reactive. That's certainly my experience in agencies, whereas a SaaS platform can be a lot more proactive. You also talked a lot about the sustainability of it. That long-term proactiveness is one of the key mantras in terms of building digital sustainability in the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't forget that if you follow a traditional agency model, you're basically building towards the launch date, and then the project is done. And then it's about trying to support it maybe at the most efficient way you can, and keep it alive for as long as you can, and basically wait for the next project. Whereas for us, a website that launched, that's just the beginning. We build for use, and we build for sustainable tooling. We build for improving that. And instead of focusing on how can we keep it alive, we're trying with our customer assessment, R&D to think about how can we help you get more out of the system? How can we build more? How can we build the next version that's even better? And that's so much more positive and makes so much more sense when you think about it. So I think, to me, that's the core thing that also drives people to enjoy working for Culture Suite, because they enjoy working for all of our venues in the collective, that if you're a customer success manager, it's not about supporting, keeping it live, it's about helping get more out of it. If you're R&D, it's not about building to some launch date and then forget about it, but it's about building something that's really intended to be used. So it's so much more fun.
Yeah, and I think that the proactive aspect is also quite real. I think when in our bespoke days, I think a lot of our time and effort went into one single client at one single time. So you tend to cater to what they want. So you are reactive. You can bring in new ideas and stuff, but it's only for that client. And when that project is done, all the value is in that one website or that one solution, and other clients don't benefit from it. But when you're releasing new things in a platform, it might be thought of as heading in a certain directions, but then other clients get the opportunity to use it too. And they come with their own ideas and their own conclusions, and suddenly some things you might not even expect move in different directions or serve different needs and provide different solutions that you didn't expect. So by releasing something into a wider ecosystem, you get also more feedback from of course, that ecosystem, and you get this evolution in all the features that you introduced, which makes it it's a more proactive mindset also from our venues, because they're really looking at our features and saying, hey, I have an idea to improve this, or can I use this to fulfill this purpose? And everything becomes alive and becomes fluid, because we know we can build on it.
Which actually now is added on by becoming more international, that we now have users in the United States, United Kingdom, Scandinavia, Netherlands, Belgium. To have different views and approach and experiences really adds also to that feedback that Ivo mentioned. So we really are able now to add an international mindset next to the diversity and type of venues already. So that all really adds to the product, and then it becomes again a nice self-fulfilling positive prophecy.
You touched on it briefly there, and you mentioned it earlier in our chat as well. You know, one of the most interesting things about Cult Suite is the cooperative model. You know, we have a community of over 90 venues at the moment, and the Peppered roadmap is community-led. You know, the venues, as you say, can directly influence new features, suggestions, even sponsor them to get it on the roadmap quicker. But how does that affect and long-term planning, and how do you conduct long-term planning of the product when Peppered is so influenced by the community, and how do you align business goals with customer needs?
Yeah, I think if I can start answering that, I think in the long run, our business goals should be in line with our customer needs, because we offer a product that we want people to use. So we better make sure that they want to use it. So there is no real conflict in what we want to do versus what our venues or future clients expect from us. It is all, I think it's basically in line for the topics that we all agree on, but there could be topics that we initiate that our clients haven't picked up on yet, or new trends or new technology that we think might be relevant for the sector, but is not yet there. So we sometimes take this role of piloting new stuff that we feel like should be relevant for the sector. So that's where our roadmap sometimes tend to move ahead of what is expected from the venues we work for. But it works the other way around as well. We don't know all the ins and outs of all our venues, so they sometimes come up with ideas that we haven't thought about. So we'll put that on the roadmap as well. So, but the basic difficulty is not within our own focus and our own, not our own focus and focus of clients. I think that's pretty much aligned. But having a platform also means having to maintain it and having to upgrade it and having to keep developing, because the code that you put in 15 years ago is not going to be the code that you will see in the platform in another 15 years. You need to keep up with new versions of software, with new technologies, with new safety standards, accessibility standards. So the main I'm not going to say struggle because that sounds too negative, but the main focal point for the roadmap is having this correct balance between having new features that you and your clients agree upon, and on the other side, making sure that your platform keeps being updated and deliver the most possible best performance with the current state of the technique. And that's something that's often highly invisible. That's just maintaining, like you have to maintain your car to drive for another 10 years. So our roadmap is continuously being balanced by having new features for our community, but also what is the next step in the maintenance and the upgrade process of our platform, to keep it up to date and to keep it modern and to keep it performing at the highest level of standards that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, sounds like a tricky balancing act you got on your hands there.
Yeah.
You talked about how maintaining Peppered is kind of like bringing up a child or a baby. So this might be a hard one to answer, but what are some of your favorite features since release 1 of Peppered CMS?
I think if I want to take it to another metaphor, I think it's that basically Peppered is a moving train, and we are replacing that complete train all the time. So in a way, it's the same train as 10 years ago. In another way, every single bolt, little bit of mechanic has been replaced several times maybe, and we have to keep doing that. And I'm thinking about that one because to me, the favorite feature isn't, and this is maybe a bit of a boring answer, but it's not about the feature you see or you can use or even easily describe. It's about the feature that we were able to figure out how can we build something that can be continuously replaced and built upon, so we can make sure that it's up to date on even the most, from the perspective of our venues, perhaps boring things like security or indeed the scalability or accessibility, SEO. Sometimes some of these topics come up back, but I really enjoy that we can also take part of responsibility for that and bridge the gap between tech and the cultural sector, because with this model, the culture doesn't need to know about details of the security. They just need to know if they can trust us to handle that whilst the train is moving, whilst it's still going on. And then, of course, external pen test, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's the most exciting to me if you talk about what features of the last years.
Yeah, it's like a moving train that needs repair, but you cannot stop at a station. It just needs to keep on moving. So you have to figure out a way to fix it while it's on the rails. Yeah, to me, there's a lot of features that I really like. I especially like, there's not a specific feature, but being able to release a new feature and then having it out there for 90 clients, just saying, well, this is new. I think you're all gonna like it, and it's available to you all. Having that, it feels like sometimes giving away presents. So it's really nice to be able to do that when you have something new, that you're just able to roll it out and say to everyone, if you want to use it, you're welcome. Here it is. We have it for you, and that feels really rewarding. And as of actual features, because I really quite like the time slots that we delivered as a alternative to queuing in very big pre-sales. Like being in a queue is never good, and just having to wait, it's such a negative thing. So the time slot module that we came up with, and I'm sure you can link it somewhere for people that are interested. I think it's such a nice way for people to get their own personal little bit of time where they can make their orders and the reservations without all the stress of having to be there at a certain time and then having all these other people also there. So that's from me, from a client or a visitor perspective, that's a really nice one to have been able to build. And I also quite like our narrowcasting system, which was built from a very, very simple principle. Like we didn't aim to have a narrowcasting system that does everything that all systems do, that has all the buttons and features and scheduling and that complexity. we just started with our own event database. We have all the events, we have all the images, we know which event is on what day, and around that, we built an automated narrowcasting that could show that in your foyer, in your venue, and then come up with suggestions and alternatives. And it was something that we built from the vision of you just have to create it once, and it will run for the entirety of whatever. It can do a year. It can do for the entire time that you're using the Pepper platform. It will just show relevant productions and relevant info based around what's on in your venue at that day. And I still like that very clean and simple principle that is the base of that. It's elegant, and it automates all the hassle without being overly complex. So I'm still really admiring the way it worked out, and the simple idea that was the origin of it.
You guys have been in the industry for well over 20 years, building websites. So you may have a lot of experience to look back on, but looking to the future, what are some of the big challenges in the industry you'd like to solve when it comes to building websites and website management?
I think actually, I mean, this sounds a bit arrogant, but we are already solving a lot of things, and we are on the forefront. So we kind of expect others to follow suit and also start building similar products. And our biggest strength, also looking back, has always been adopting and changing to whatever is needed for the sector, for our clients. Like Ivo said, Ivo's point earlier is that our roadmap, whatever we build, is built for the collective, with the collective. So I think towards the future, the biggest challenge is to remain, as we have in the past, able to change, able to adopt, and live on, and also kill your darlings. So thinking back, also a long time ago, we used to have a mobile site for mobile phone visitors. That was a thing. And obviously we killed it off at some point because we felt, well, it makes more sense to build responsive websites. And I do not know what the far future will bring, but maybe we'll kill off certain things that we now find really important. And I think that will be the challenge for the future, to be able to do that and keep doing that, and also have keep that interaction with the collective. And now that it's growing, and that's something we really look forward to also.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to predict the further future because things change so much. Like, for instance, you have AI right now. You didn't have a conversation about AI a year ago. So it's still very much in its early days. So everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. We need AI in our tool. But what does it actually add, and where should you apply it, and what does it do for the users? It's also an idea of, obviously, that we're playing with, but we're not trying to implement it just to have the label. We're trying to look for more meaningful ways where it can add, or where it can save you time or help you with your content creation, for instance, and stuff. And that future, it's changing so rapidly. I can imagine in a couple of years, having an account or having a ticket could even change. Maybe there's going to be big players. Maybe you don't even need a ticket anymore, but just being able to prove it's you at the door will automatically get you in, because everything knows that you already bought a ticket. So it's really hard to predict, and I think very tricky to already prepare for that. But we really have to keep our eyes open for all those different ways it could go. But it's an exciting thing, because things change rapidly, and we need to at least be able to respond to it, and sometimes proactively jump into it. So having an organization that is flexible, having teams that are flexible, being able to get new input into the roadmap and to shuffle things around with a 3-week release cycle, you can do that. You can say, well, okay, we'll move this further down the line, and we'll move this in because all of a sudden this feels more urgent. Or staying flexible is, I think, a big challenge. And that's the one that I think we really need to keep on doing right in order to to do what we do.
Yeah, that and building out the collective, and touched upon many times maybe already, but the diversity and also the internationalization of the collective and growing the collective will allow bigger budgets for the R&D team to build better things, and using knowledge not only from a certain region but throughout. That will be we feel for us the future that we really look forward to.
Yeah, we certainly look forward to that. As you say, we're not sure what technological advances might come around the corner, but we're certainly optimistic for the future of arts and culture and fostering digital sustainability in the sector. Well, it's been great chatting to you both and hearing about the history of Peppered and how you it turned into a SaaS platform and developing a community-driven model. I certainly love to see it when you suggest ideas for the roadmap, and we certainly look forward to more of it. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys again, maybe for a Release 300 chat.
Hopefully earlier.
So thank you for your time. And until then, I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great, Matt. Thanks.
Yes,
See you
bye.
soon.
Bye.